The glass doors of Stone Enterprises glided open with a soft hiss as Emily Carter stepped inside. Her heart pounded, a mix of fear and fragile hope. This was it, the start of a life she had dreamed of but never believed she deserved. Her blouse was crisp but faded, her shoes polished though worn thin. Yet, her eyes carried a spark of quiet determination that no poverty could erase. At the front desk, she introduced herself politely. The receptionist barely looked up, pointing lazily toward the elevator. 10th floor. Ask for Miss Blake. Emily whispered a thank you and hurried on. The 10th floor looked like a world she didn't belong to glass walls. Modern art, people in expensive suits gliding across polished floors. She tightened her grip on her small bag and knocked on the door marked Victoria Blake, Head of Design. Come in, a sharp voice replied. Inside. Victoria sat behind a sleek desk, perfectly styled, her red lipstick as sharp as her tone. You're the new intern? She asked, the eyes scanning Emily like she was inspecting a discount tag. Yes, ma'am. We don't have time for slow learners, Victoria snapped. You're here to work, not to be inspired. Emily nodded softly. Yes, ma'am. Victoria tossed a thick stack of papers across the table. Make 20 copies and try not to ruin them. As Emily walked toward the copier, she noticed an old cleaning woman sweeping nearby, moving carefully, humming under her breath. No one paid attention to her. Emily stopped and smiled. Good morning, ma'am. Ma'am, can I help you? The woman looked up, surprised by kindness she hadn't felt in years. No, dear, she said softly, but thank you. Emily's simple gesture didn't go unnoticed. Behind the glass wall, Victoria's cold eyes narrowed. Let's see how long that sweetness lasts, she muttered. The next morning, the air inside Stone Enterprises felt heavier. The hum of printers and the rhythmic clicking of heels filled the glass hallways like a silent orchestra of ambition. Emily kept her head down, organizing documents at the copy room table, while the elderly cleaner moved slowly along the corridor, mopping the floor with quiet grace. Then came the sharp, deliberate sound of heels. Victoria Blake appeared, holding a paper cup of water, her lips curved into a thin, mocking smile. She stopped right in front of the cleaner, looked down at her, and tilted her wrist. The cup spilled, water splashing across the freshly cleaned floor. Oh dear, Victoria said sweetly, her tone dripping with venom. What a mess. You really should clean that again. After all, that's what we pay you for, isn't it? The cleaner froze. Her eyes flicked toward the puddle, then back to Victoria. Yes, ma'am, she whispered softly and bent down to clean the spill once more, her frail hands trembling slightly. Victoria folded her arm, watching with cruel amusement. You're too old for this. You move like you're stuck in slow motion. Maybe it's time you retire and stop wasting everyone's time. A few employees passing by snickered. Emily heard the words and felt her heart tighten. Her hands stopped moving. Without hesitation, she stepped forward. Excuse me, Ms. Blake, she said gently but firmly. That wasn't fair. The floor was already clean. You poured the water on purpose. The room fell quiet. Every head turned. Victoria's smile vanished. What did you just say? Emily met her eyes without flinching. No one deserves to be treated like that. She's doing her job. A dangerous silence filled the space. Victoria took one slow step forward, her heels clicking like a countdown. You think you can talk to me like that? Intern? Her voice sharpened. Do you have any idea who I am? Emily's voice shook slightly, but her conviction didn't. I know you're my superior, but I also know respect is earned, not demanded. Gasps fluttered through the office. Victoria's face flushed with rage. You little fool, she spat. You want to play hero for this dusty old woman? As she lifted her hand in frustration, something slipped from her wrist. A soft crack echoed through the air. The jade bracelet she always flaunted hit the tile floor and shattered into glittering green shards. Everyone froze. Victoria stared at the broken pieces, her breath quickening. Then her eyes snapped toward the cleaner. "Look what you've done," she barked. "Do you know how much that cost?" $30,000. You'll pay for this." The old woman's lips trembled. "Ma'am, I didn't—" "Don't talk back," Victoria shouted, voice echoing down the hall. "This is authentic jade, the finest quality. You couldn't afford it even if you sold everything you own." A few people exchanged uneasy glances, but no one dared speak. Emily took a step closer, kneeling slightly to examine one of the shards. She turned it in her fingers, the light catching its smooth, too perfect surface. "With all due respect, Ms. Blake," she said quietly, "this doesn't look like real jade." Victoria froze. "What?" Emily looked up, calm but steady. "Real jade has natural imperfections. It's never this clear. My mother used to sell gemstones in the market. This," she held up the fragment, "looks like glass." The silence was suffocating. Even the printers had gone still. Victoria's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Then, in a last desperate attempt to regain control, she hissed, "Are you accusing me of lying?" "I'm saying," Emily replied softly, "that blaming someone innocent for your mistake isn't right." The cleaner looked up at her, tears brimming in her kind eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. Victoria trembled with fury. "Get out. Both of you. You're finished here." Her voice cracked like a whip through the stunned office. But before anyone could move, the sound of a slow clap echoed from the far end of the hall. Heads turned toward the elevator just as the doors slid open. Ethan Hamilton stepped out, calm and composed, his sharp gaze sweeping over the frozen scene. The applause stopped. "Interesting morning," he said lightly, though his eyes held steel. "Let's start by hearing what happened, shall we?" The color drained from Victoria's face, and for the first time, Emily realized the cruel test she had just walked into was being watched by the very man who would change her life forever. The room froze as Ethan Hamilton's voice sliced through the tension. His polished shoes echoed against the marble floor, each step deliberate, steady, and powerful. The employees straightened instantly, whispering his name under their breath. The CEO of Stone Enterprises rarely appeared on this floor. And when he did, something serious was about to happen. Ethan's calm eyes swept across the room, landing first on Victoria Blake, then on Emily Carter, and finally on the trembling cleaner kneeling by the shattered bracelet. "What's going on here?" he asked, his tone calm yet commanding enough to make every heart skip a beat. Victoria's mask of confidence cracked, but she quickly forced a polite smile. "Mr. Hamilton, I was handling a small matter. The cleaning staff caused damage to company property, and this in turn," she gestured sharply toward Emily, "interfered in a disciplinary issue." Ethan didn't respond right away. He walked past her, his gaze settling on the old woman still on her knees. "Are you all right?" he asked gently. The woman looked up, her voice soft. "Yes, sir, I'm fine." But something in the way she said it, in the steadiness of her tone, made Emily glance at her twice. There was a quiet authority hidden behind that frail voice, a dignity that didn't belong to a simple cleaner. Victoria interrupted, eager to regain control. "Sir, she broke my jade bracelet, worth $30,000. I can file a report if necessary." Ethan finally turned toward her, his face unreadable. "You said she broke it?" "Yes." Victoria replied quickly. "She's clumsy and slow, and this intern," her words dripped with venom, "decided to play hero for her." The air grew cold. Ethan's jaw tightened ever so slightly. "And you're certain," he said, stepping closer, "that she's the one who broke it?" Victoria faltered for the first time. I saw it fall after she bumped into me." Ethan's eyes narrowed. "Funny, I just reviewed security footage before coming down. Gasps rippled through the staff. Victoria froze. Footage? Yes. Ethan's voice was quiet now, but each word hit like a hammer. It shows that you, Ms. Blake, spilled water on the floor, mocked this employee, and dropped your own bracelet. Then you blamed her. The color drained from Victoria's face. Sir, there must be some mistake. Ethan raised a hand, silencing her. His gaze softened as he turned toward the cleaner. You don't have to kneel. The woman hesitated, then slowly stood. As she lifted her head, the light caught her eyes a calm, knowing sparkle. Ethan met that gaze for the first time, and the faintest smile touched his lips. You've had enough of this charade, haven't you, Mother? A stunned silence crashed over the office. Victoria's lips parted in disbelief. Mother? She whispered. Emily's breath caught. She looked from the elegant CEO to the woman who had been scrubbing floors minutes ago. Unable to process what she was hearing, Grace Hamilton removed her cleaning gloves, folding them neatly in her hands. I wanted to see how people treat those they think are beneath them, she said quietly. And now I've seen. Every word hit the room like thunder. The staff looked down, ashamed. Victoria's knees trembled. I didn't know, she stammered. Mr. Hamilton, I swear I had no idea she was. Ethan's voice turned cold again. That's exactly the problem. Ms. Blake, you didn't know, and yet you thought it was acceptable to humiliate her. You thought kindness was weakness. He stepped closer, his tone sharper now. You've proven that you can lead through fear, but not through respect. That's not the kind of leadership we value here. Victoria's face flushed crimson, her carefully composed image shattered as her colleagues looked away. Embarrassed for her, Ethan turned toward Emily, his expression softening. Miss Carter, he said quietly, thank you for standing up for her. Emily blinked, unsure how to respond. I just did what anyone should, she whispered. A faint smile touched his lips. That's what makes it remarkable. He looked back at the stunned office. Let this be a reminder to everyone, he said firmly. Respect is not optional. As he guided his mother out of the hall, whispers erupted behind them: shock, guilt, awe. Emily stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had no idea that defending a humble cleaner would change her life and catch the eye of the most powerful man in the building. That night, long after the office lights had dimmed, Emily sat by her small apartment window, the city lights blurring into streaks of gold through her tears. Ethan's words still echoed in her mind, his calm defense, the respect in his eyes, but they stirred something deeper. Memories she had buried under layers of silence began to surface like ghosts demanding to be heard. It began months ago. Her mother, Margaret Benson, had always favored her younger sister Bella, the prettier, louder, more ambitious one. Emily was quiet, studious, the one who worked part-time to keep the family afloat. She thought that loyalty would be enough. She was wrong. That night, Margaret had called her into the kitchen. You've been so tired lately, she said sweetly. Drink this. It'll calm your nerves. Emily hesitated but obeyed. The orange juice tasted strange, bitter on her tongue. Within minutes, her world tilted. The room spun, her mother's voice fading into a muffled hum. The last thing she saw was Bella standing by the door, her eyes avoiding Emily's, her hands clutching an envelope thick with cash. When Emily woke, the air smelled of expensive perfume and fear. She was lying on a silk bed in a dimly lit hotel room. Her purse was gone. The door was locked. Panic clawed at her chest as she stumbled to her feet. The window reflected a pale, frightened version of herself, drugged, betrayed, sold. Footstep approached. The door opened. She braced herself for a monster, but instead, a tall man in a dark blue suit stepped inside, his brows furrowing in confusion. Ethan Hamilton. He looked around, clearly realizing he had entered the wrong room. "Wait," he said softly, his eyes meeting hers. "You don't look okay." Her voice trembled. "I was brought here, I think. They sold me." Ethan froze, disbelief and anger flashing across his face. He pulled out his phone, made a call, and spoke in a low, sharp tone. Then he turned back to her, his voice gentler. "You're safe now. No one's going to touch you." From his wallet, he took out a sleek black card and handed it to her. "There's $2 million on this. Take it. Start over." Emily stared at the card, her hands shaking. "I don't want your money," she whispered. "I just need 50,000. That's what they took from me." He blinked. "You're serious?" She nodded. "I don't want pity. I just want my life back." Ethan watched her, speechless for a moment. In a world where everyone had a price, she was the first person he had met who refused to sell her dignity. Slowly. He lowered his voice. "My mother keeps trying to arrange my marriage. I've never met anyone I could trust. Until now." Emily looked at him, confused. "What do you mean?" He took a breath. "If I marry you, no one can touch you again. No one can sell you, hurt you, or control you. It will be just a contract. No expectations. But it'll give you protection." Her pulse quickened. "A marriage?" He nodded. "Only on paper. You can finish school, work, live your life. I'll handle the rest." "No one has to know." Emily hesitated. Then she looked down at her trembling hands and whispered, "If it means I can be free, I'll do it." That night, under flickering courthouse lights, they signed the papers quietly. No ring, no kiss, no witnesses. Just two strangers bound by fate, one trying to escape her nightmare, the other unknowingly stepping into his own. Back in the present? Emily wiped a tear from her cheek and whispered to herself, "He saved me. Before he even knew me." The evening after the confrontation, the Hamilton mansion glowed under the golden light of the setting sun, a place of marble halls, oil paintings, and quiet servants moving like shadows. Inside the grand study, Ethan stood by the window, his jacket off, sleeves rolled up, a tumbler of untouched whiskey on the desk beside him. His expression was calm, but his thoughts were restless. The door creaked open. Grace Hamilton entered, no longer wearing the gray uniform of a cleaner, but a flowing navy gown that reflected her quiet authority. Her presence filled the room with warmth and gravity all at once. Ethan turned. "Mother," he greeted softly. Grace smiled faintly. "I suppose I should explain myself before you decide I've lost my mind." He raised an eyebrow. "You disguise yourself as a janitor in your own company. I'd say that requires an explanation." Grace chuckled, walking closer. "You've been too busy building your empire? Ethan, you stopped noticing people? You hire the smartest, not the kindest. I wanted to see if your judgment in business had infected your heart." Ethan leaned against the desk, intrigued. "So, you were testing me?" "Not you," she said gently. "Her." He frowned. "Emily?" Grace nodded. "When I first saw her name on the intern list, I asked your assistant about her. No connections, no family wealth, no one pulling strings for her. That intrigued me. So I went down to see what kind of woman comes to Stone Enterprises with nothing but courage." She paused, her voice softening. "That's when I saw her stop to help me pick up a fallen pen. Most people walked by. She smiled, said good morning, and meant it. You can't fake that." Ethan said nothing, his gaze distant. Grace studied his face, then smiled knowingly. "You care about her already." He looked away. "She's different," he admitted. "She's honest in a place where honesty feels like a weakness." Grace walked to the window beside him. "You've built walls so high, Ethan, even I can't see over them. but she slipped through without trying. Ethan turned to her, half smiling. So the test was for her heart, not mine. Grace's expression softened with pride. Exactly. And she passed. When Victoria insulted me, she didn't hesitate. She didn't know who I was. She just knew someone was being wronged, and she stood up for it. Her tone grew serious. That kind of integrity is rare, especially in this world of polished mass and shallow ambition. You chose well. He exhaled slowly, the tension leaving his shoulders. So, what happens now? Grace took his hand, the strength of a mother in her grip. Invite her into our home. Let me see who she truly is when she's not wearing fear. People reveal their souls when they feel safe. Ethan hesitated. Mother, what if she finds out about our past, about the contract, the marriage? She'll think it was all a manipulation. Grace's eyes softened. Then tell her the truth. The right woman won't run from it. She'll understand why you did what you did. The room fell silent for a moment. Outside, the wind whispered through the garden trees. Finally, Ethan nodded. I'll bring her home. Grace smiled, placing a hand on his cheek. Good, because sometimes the most powerful thing a man can do is trust a good heart. As she turned to leave, she added over her shoulder, and Ethan, don't wait too long. Fate doesn't knock twice. When the door closed, Ethan stood alone, the quiet of the house echoing her words. He looked toward the night sky and whispered to himself, maybe she's the one who was meant to find me. The Hamilton estate shimmered with golden lights that night. Chandeliers glowed like constellations above the ballroom. Violins played softly, and laughter rippled through the air as guests arrived in glittering gowns and tuxedos. It was Grace Hamilton's birthday, a celebration that drew everyone who mattered: business leaders, politicians, and socialites who adored power as much as they feared it. At the far end of the room, Grace stood radiant in a silver dress, elegant and poised. Her son Ethan greeted guests beside her, charming and controlled as ever, but his eyes kept searching the crowd, waiting for one person. When Emily appeared, heads turned. She wore a simple emerald green gown that shimmered under the lights, her hair gently pinned up, her presence quiet yet magnetic. She wasn't dripping in jewels or luxury, just a woman who didn't need them to shine. Ethan's gaze softened. Grace noticed it and smiled knowingly. Emily, darling, Grace said as she approached. You look beautiful. I'm so glad you came. Emily smiled modestly. Thank you, Mrs. Hamilton. I wouldn't miss this night for anything. From across the room, Victoria Blake watched, her painted lips tightening. She carried a velvet box under her arm, a gift she had spent days selecting, hoping to win back the Hamiltons' favor after her public humiliation at the office. As the evening unfolded, toasts were made, champagne flowed, and finally, Grace raised a hand. It's time for gifts, she announced warmly. Victoria was the first to step forward. Mrs. Hamilton, she said sweetly, please accept this jade pendant. It's from a private antique collector in London. One of a kind. She opened the box dramatically. Inside lay a glistening green pendant, carved with floral patterns. The crowd murmured in admiration. Grace smiled politely but said nothing. Before she could respond, Emily stepped forward, holding a small box wrapped in ivory paper. Mine isn't as fancy, she said softly, but it's something I found after studying gemstones with Professor Francis Coleman. At the mention of that name, several guests turned. Francis Coleman, a world-renowned gemologist and family friend of the Hamiltons, stood nearby. He adjusted his glasses, intrigued. You studied with me? He asked with mild surprise. Emily blushed, only briefly. You once said, a stone's worth is in its story. That stayed with me. She handed the box to Grace. Inside was a delicate jade brooch, smaller than Victoria's pendant but glowing with a natural, soft green hue. Grace's eyes widened. "May I?" Francis asked. Stepping closer, he examined both pieces under the ballroom light, his expression shifting. "Fascinating," he murmured. "Mrs. Hamilton." The pendant Miss Blake presented as beautiful, just not in the way she claimed. Victoria's smile faltered. "Excuse me?" Francis turned the pendant in his hand. "It's glass. High-quality imitation, but not jade. See this uniform clarity? Real jade breathes it has veins, imperfections. This one does not." Gasps rippled through the guests. Victoria's face turned pale. Francis then turned to Emily's brooch. "Now this," he said with reverence, "is authentic Hetian jade. Late Ming Dynasty craftsmanship. The texture, the translucency, it's extraordinary. Whoever found this has a remarkable eye." Grace looked at Emily, eyes soft with pride. "And you brought this for me?" Emily nodded shyly. "You once said true beauty doesn't need to be loud. I just wanted to give you something that feels alive." For a long moment, the room was silent. Then applause erupted. First polite, then genuine. Victoria's hand trembled as she snapped her box shut. She forced a laugh. "It must be a mix-up. The dealer must have." Ethan's voice cut through the noise. "Enough, Victoria. Tonight is about authenticity, not appearances." Her face burned crimson. Every whisper in the room sliced her pride deeper. Grace took Emily's hand, lifting it gently. "My dear, thank you. You've reminded me that the rarest gems in this world are honesty and heart." Emily blushed, her eyes glistening. Ethan watched her quietly, a smile tugging at his lips. Victoria stood frozen, surrounded by the glittering crowd that now looked at her with pity. And as the orchestra began to play again, she realized the worst humiliation wasn't losing face. It was being replaced by someone who never tried to impress, yet outshone her completely. The scandal of the fake jade had barely faded when another storm quietly began to brew. It started on an ordinary afternoon in the Hamilton residence. The servants whispered in the halls, and Grace, sitting by the piano, looked up as the butler entered. "Madam," he said carefully, "there's a young woman here asking to see Professor Francis Coleman. She says it's urgent." Moments later, the heavy doors opened, revealing a striking woman in her late 20s, confident, beautiful, but with eyes too sharp for innocence. "My name is Bella Benson," she said, her voice trembling just enough to sound believable, "and I believe Professor Coleman is my father." The room went still. Grace exchanged a look with Ethan, who frowned slightly, assessing the stranger, before anyone could respond. Francis Coleman himself stepped forward from the adjoining library, his expression tense. "What did you say?" Bella's eyes filled with tears as she reached into her purse, pulling out an old photograph, faded, crumpled, but convincingly aged. It showed a young Francis beside a woman with familiar features. "My mother told me before she died," Bella whispered. "She said you loved her once, in Paris, and that I was the child you never knew." Francis froze, the color draining from his face. "Paris," he murmured. "That was 40 years ago." "She never told you because she was afraid?" Bella continued, voice shaking. "But I spent my whole life searching for you, and when I saw your name in an article about Emily Carter, I knew I had found the truth." Ethan's jaw tightened at the mention of Emily's name. Grace, however, stayed silent, her intuition prickling like a warning bell. Francis stepped closer, eyes misty. "If what you say is true, then you've come home," he said softly. "You look so much like her." Tears streamed down Bella's cheeks. "I've always wondered where I belonged," she said. "Now I know." Within a week, the mansion that once echoed with grace and order had changed. Bella moved into one of the guest rooms. Francis insisted she call him father. He introduced her to guests as his long-lost daughter. His pride restored, his heart finally at peace. The media caught wind of the story, dubbing her the miracle daughter of Francis Coleman. Bella basked in the attention, her smile perfectly practiced for every camera flash. But beneath that charm was something colder. Grace watched quietly. One evening, she found Bella admiring a string of pearls in the sitting room. "You're quite comfortable here already," Grace said calmly. Bella turned, smiling politely. "Your family has been so kind. I just want to make up for lost time." Grace's eyes narrowed slightly. "Perhaps, but you don't seem surprised by how easily everyone believes you." Bella tilted her head, feigning innocence. "Sometimes the truth doesn't need convincing. Mrs. Hamilton." But when Grace left the room, Bella's smile dropped. She pulled out her phone, typing quickly. A message appeared on the screen. "Bella, she's getting suspicious. We need that DNA test result by Friday. Victor, already handled. You'll have what you need. Hamiltons won't question a lab report. Victor Hamilton, Ethan's ambitious younger brother, always lurking in the shadow of success, had found a perfect ally." At dinner that week, Francis proudly announced, "The DNA results are in. They confirm it. Bella is my biological daughter." The table fell silent. Grace's fingers tightened around her glass, her instincts screaming. Ethan looked at his brother across the table, but Victor only smiled, raising his wine. Bella placed a hand on Francis's arm, her eyes glistening with fake gratitude. "Thank you for believing in me," she said softly. "I promise I'll never disappoint you." But outside the window, as the rain began to fall, Grace whispered to Ethan, "Something isn't right. She's not who she says she is." Ethan met his mother's gaze and nodded slowly. "Then we'll find out who she really is." The grand ballroom of the Royal Crown Hotel gleamed like a palace of glass and gold. Crystal chandeliers shimmered, violins played soft waltzes, and the city's elite gathered beneath a ceiling painted with angels. It was the annual Hamilton Foundation Charity Gala, a night of elegance, wealth, and secrets waiting to erupt. Emily Carter stood quietly near the antique display table, dressed in a graceful ivory gown that reflected the candlelight. Every movement she made carried humility and grace. Professor Francis Coleman stood beside her, his gentle eyes proud of the young woman who had become like a daughter to him. Across the room, Bella Benson shone in a blood-red gown, her smile flawless, her presence commanding. Cameras loved her, and tonight, she was determined to make sure no one forgot who she was, the lost daughter of Francis Coleman. As the gala reached its peak, the auctioneer's voice echoed, announcing rare antiques, gemstones, and historical pieces. Laughter and applause filled the air until Ethan Hamilton stepped onto the stage. The room fell into a hush. His presence commanded attention. Tall and calm in a black tuxedo, his expression unreadable. "Good evening, everyone," he began smoothly. "Tonight, we celebrate generosity, but we also celebrate truth." Bella's smile flickered. Grace, seated near the front, exchanged a knowing glance with Ethan. Ethan continued, "Recently, questions have arisen about the identity of Professor Francis Coleman's long-lost daughter. As many of you know, Miss Bella Benson has claimed that title." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Bella lifted her chin proudly. "And I have the proof," she said loudly, clutching her purse where a copy of the falsified DNA test lay hidden. But Ethan held up a sealed envelope. "Indeed," he said softly, "there was a DNA test, but this one was conducted privately by my office, under supervision from the National Genetic Authority." Bella's fingers stiffened. Her smile froze. Ethan opened the envelope slowly, the sound of paper tearing echoing through the silent hall. "According to these results," he said clearly, "Miss Bella Benson is not biologically related to Professor Francis Coleman." Gasps erupted. Someone dropped a champagne glass. The sound shattered through the tension,